and say why you are here. And if there's one thing that you would like to walk away with tonight, what would that be? So let's start with you two.
I'm Tom. I'm here because of Jennifer.
Of course. We all know how that works.
Sure. I'm Jennifer. Tom's my husband. Just interested in what the evening unfolds. I'm very interested in consciousness and interested in sexuality and how those two can meet each other.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Come on in. Actually, there are two chairs here, so. Thank you, and thank you for Tom for being a willing participant. And sometimes women are really attracted to this. Sometimes men for other reasons, and we often know that in couples, it's the women are often more interested in starting something new. So thank you. Margot.
My name is Margot. Hi everyone. I work in the hormone specialty, so we do a lot of work with couples, and sexual performance or lack of desire happens with a decrease in hormones. So we're opening a clinic in Vancouver, so we're hoping that I can learn more from you as a referral source, because the counseling and coaching piece is such a big piece that would support the hormones. And of course, personally, I'm always curious, open-minded, and happy to be here. So
Thank you. Yes?
My name is Boyd. I was just drawn to come here tonight.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's good enough. That's
I don't know
that's
why, but I'm here.
excellent. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joy, and I've known Julia for a couple of years now through in the Tantra community, and here to support
Thank you.
Julia, and I've got no expectations for the evening. I'm just here to see what it's all, see what
What unfolds?
what
Thank you.
unfolds here.
Thank you.
I'm Dan. Know Julie and Joy. Been involved with the Tantra community and the Oma community for a while. Just coming here to help out where I can.
Thank you. Yes?
I'm Anastasia. To be honest, I don't have any expectations, just
Great.
I was drawn to this place for some reason.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elena. Just kind of same here. I'm just interested in the subject.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Gerald. I'm interested in this subject. How does this subject relate to spirituality?
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
I'm James. Actually, I came here to meditate and heard that this was happening, and I was curious.
There's meditation involved in this too.
Okay. And so I was curious, and I'd like to be as aware as I possibly can.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
And I'm Allison. Ditto. I came for the meditation. I'm curious.
Fantastic. Thank you.
My name is Brian, and I'll talk about sex anytime. Just ask me.
Yes.
My name is Cecilia, and I'm listening to people speaking sex all the time. And I'm coming here tonight because I'm looking for some grounding by any means.
Somewhat?
Grounding.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm Georgette. I'm a friend of Julia's. And she's so enthusiastic about what she's doing, and I want to support her. And I think there's always something new to learn, so that's why I came.
Thank you.
I'm David, and the topic is very interesting for me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Miriam, and I'm just here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome.
Andrew. I'm friends of Julia, but always interested in learning more about pleasure, intimacy, sexuality, connection, and that's why I'm here.
So, yes, thank you. Thank you all for being here. And this is such a charged topic because sex is really the area where it's a point where we meet and where our truth comes alive, and it's really the point where our highest consciousness can be reached. And that is often not told by us. And really, before I get into talking about sex and orgasm, I'd like to tell you a little bit how I got around to this topic. And I was born in Hungary, and I was a pretty precocious child, and born in communism, and very pragmatic to very young parents who were fairly emotionally immature. Now that I think of it, they were only 20 when they had me, so what did they know? And so I kind of grew up with them, and they had become part of their relationship. And but I didn't really know and learn a lot about how to be in a relationship. And I think a lot of you can relate to that. We don't, we all model our parents' relationship and how they deal with issues, but who is really taught how to do that? And so, I would really like to change the current education system that is out there, and educate the youth as well as those who are already in relationships and they would like to find out some more and relate to each other in a better way, and also the elderly who have never experienced, perhaps an orgasm or a real way to relate to each other. We all know the divorce rate out there, but a little known fact that about 60% of those divorces actually are initiated by women, and they are citing sexual incompatibility. And we also know there, a lot of men are using porn, and a lot of women are using vibrators in order to compensate for what's lacking out there. And so male sexuality and female sexuality is actually quite different. And nobody really tells you that story as you're growing up. So you're just, observing what's happening, you're becoming a teenager, your hormones start working, and then like all of us, we just start, playing with each other without really knowing what to do or how to do it. And so going back to the very beginning, if you think about it, we all are born out of an orgasm, right? That's that point. And for men, especially when you're born and a baby is born, you're given a nipple, and that's your life force. And
Sorry, I missed that word. You were given what?
a nipple,
Oh,
a breast,
okay.
right? And that's your life force, and that's sustaining you for life. So for the rest of a man's life, basically he is searching for that life force. So we manipulate sex, especially men manipulate sex, and I will use the word nipple nation. So the manipulation comes in. And it sounds like a funny term, but if you think about it, that's really what's happening for men especially, because they had that sense of nurturing and they had sense of taking care of, and then it's taken away from you. And then, for the rest of your life, you're, as a sexual being, you're trying to get back to that. And how are you going to get back to that? You have to get women to have sex with you. So it is, and men themselves, have a relationship with their penis as they are growing up and they become teenagers, and they are, if you talk to men, and this work had gotten me some very interesting conversations that I never knew about, because this is not something that we talk at the dinner table. And you don't talk about your parents about this. How did you guys learn this? How did you don't. In fact, we keep it quiet. And then we default to to the internet now, or some other forms. I just found my book, Everything You Wanted to Know About Sex. It's 1969. So I just looked at my bookshelves and I'm like, oh my God, I've read, about this topic for so long, and still I found that I fell into the same trap as everyone else, because as we are growing up, the society just kind of teaches us and expects us to behave in a certain way. And so men, as I said, they are they have a relationship with their own penis, and it's a fairly simple, mechanism when it comes to that, and they all know how to get off. Us women, it's a different story, because A, good girls, are not sluts, so they're not going to go and ask for sex. B, we kind of just rely on men to do it to us, and then it's supposed to feel good, and oh yeah, that felt good, he came, it was nice, okay, that must have been it. And that's most of our experience until you get into sort of a more committed relationship perhaps, and you open up that discussion with yourself. But really, women are often looked at as objects to be pursued, and or they look at we are looking at for relationships. Mostly they say that men look for relationships in order to have sex. Men and women have sex in order to have relationships, and that seemed to be the scenario out there. And so how are we going to change that, and what we are going to do about that? And that's an interesting topic. So let me go back a little bit about what happened to me, and because really my only thing I can really rely on is what happened to me and my experience, and I feel that I'm the reason why I'm pushed into this topic because I feel that I struggled with this, and as I found venues to open up my own sexuality, more and more people kept asking the questions, and I feel that I need to spread the information that I have learned, and it's lots of information out there, and it's fairly confusing for most of us. So I've and I actually don't fall into the category of a lot of women out there who actually suffered sexual trauma, but I do have some emotional trauma, and that's kind of what has brought me to discover this work. And so in my early years I was always attracted to older boys and thinking that they would know what to do, and then I married Italians, and I thought, okay, I have the best lovers in the world, and I have it all taken care of. Until I found myself with my first husband, I'm masturbating in the bathroom, and then being really ashamed and not wanting to tell him or not even know how to tell him about it, and that led to feeling really trapped in the relationship and the situation. I was in my early 20s, and led to a suicide attempt, which now I realize that was really, when we are young people and we are dealing with those emotional issues, we didn't really know who to turn to, and nobody can really give us an explanation how to deal with those issues. And so when we are trying to kill ourselves, it's not really that we are trying to give up life, it's just we are trying to kill the part of ourselves that brought us that suffering, and we don't want to, and we don't know how else to deal with it. And then I went to Montreal, and I got into all the spiritual realm, and tried to discover myself. So we have to do a bit of a soul searching when it comes to that, and reconcile parts of ourselves that we don't accept, we don't understand, and also reconcile our families and our backgrounds, and find peace with all of that. And so I've had the answers for a long time, and yet, like all of us, I abandoned it out of fear, not trusting it. So fear and doubt is always our greatest enemy, and it's because you don't trust yourself, and we don't have tools out in the society that we can go to and ask for that kind of help. So I went back to Italy, thinking that, well, that's where the best men are, and I was still looking for that, that the white picket fence, and just like any little girl, I was sold the idea that that's where, once you find the man, he's gonna be the solution to all your problems, and you're gonna create this wonderful life together. Well, I found myself pregnant with a 2-year-old, and completely abandoned. Mind you, I sent him home, but that's another story. And then I realized that there is something fundamentally wrong with the way I pick men and the way I learn relationships. I had 2 little kids on my hand, so for 6 years I didn't have sex at all. And I have to tell you, that brings out a whole other, issues of unconscious behavior. And our minds go crazy. Because sex is an integral part of who we are. And only us humans are able to really engage in sex in a way that is so satisfying and gratifying. We don't know of any other beings out there in the animal world. Mind you, I read a little story about rats and paintbrushes, but that in a lab they were trying to simulate orgasm. I'm not going to get into that. So I read a lot of things out there. I'm a bit of a geek, so I read a lot about this. But now this is a time sort of to try to get this idea across to you. So then I started online dating, and I can write a whole book about that. There's a whole learning curve about that. But what I can tell you in the 10 years of online dating, that at least I learned what I liked and I didn't like, and what I wanted and what I didn't want. And this is another story. We just don't know what we want. We don't know what we want. We don't know what we want out of our lives. We don't know what we want out of our relationships. And we also don't know how to ask for it. And then I met a man, fell in love, and I thought this was the white picket fence. And I put all my efforts into this relationship, having learned all these amazing, relationship skills and everything. I thought I'm going to make him be the one. He had another agenda. And through this relationship, I also discovered that you cannot make people to be, who you want them to be. And it's also, but every relationship, though, that it comes to you in life will just mirror where you're at and who you are at the moment. And every relationship is a learning experience. So through that, we discovered together Orgasmic Meditation. Now, Orgasmic Meditation is a partnered practice, and it's specifically designed to deconstruct a female and a male's roles of this manipulation of the male, and the women just sort of allowing things to happen to her without knowing or without being able to know what's happening in her body and being able to ask for it. And there's lots of other practices out there. This particular practice, when my boyfriend at the time said it, is like, knowing that I'm a bit of an intellect, he says, you're not going to wrap your head around it. It's really weird, but we're just going to have to try it and do it. And it is a very strange practice at first when you think about it, and I will describe it to you a little bit later on. But over time, it works on our psyche. And however, what comes with intimacy and with connection, you're also unearthing a lot of your deep emotional issues. So a lot of things will come up. So I embarked on this practice, but one of the issues that I found with it, that I found it that it's irresponsible to bring it out to people until they feel that they are ready for it. So I congratulate you for actually being here, because other people just don't want to deal with it, because we all know that we have things, emotional residue in our background that's kind of at the bottom of the barrel, that when you are in an intimate relationship, it will come up to the surface. And, it's not enough to, walk down the aisle and buy the house, and you're together, and you're together, and you're together. And that every day, eventually, your sexual experience also sort of fizzles away. So through this practice, women are taught to feel their body, feel connection to their body, which we are not taught how to do as girls growing up. And even if you masturbate, it's not the same thing as having it done to you. So this is a partnered practice. And the idea is to surrender to the connection and to the feeling itself that you have in your body. And men observe what's happening in the female's body. As I mentioned it before, men are pretty clear about, what's going on with their own sexuality. Women, not so much. And they also, I have to tell you that, like men get a lot of bad reputation about this, but really, how would they know what to do to a woman? How would they know? By the way, every single woman is different as well, so that adds to the complication as well. So whatever worked with the previous lover may not work with another lover. They discovered that there is a nerve that goes down in the spine, and it kind of like the root of the tree. It just ends on in our lower pelvic area, and certain nerve endings end up in the clitoris. There's about 8,000 nerve endings in the clitoris. So the clitoris is the star of the show, generally, but not for all women. And then some nerve endings will end up in the in the vagina, so you can have the vaginal orgasm. And apparently there's 11 different types of orgasms out there. And some nerve endings will end up in the anus, so some women will really enjoy anal sex as well. And of course there's a whole other, issue around that. And so for every single woman, depending on how these nerves are connected to your reproductive system, will have different types of orgasms. And how do we know that? It's just through practice. So the first, I would say, the tip of the iceberg is the clitoris, and that's really the where we are going to focus tonight. And beyond that, of course, there's the other areas, and Tantra goes into a whole other practice that is more including breathing and vaginal and orgasm, and also includes also the lingam massage for men as well. But we are that's a whole other topic. So tonight we are going to talk about only the clitoral orgasm, and because 70% of the women reportedly will only be able to have an orgasm through the clitoris. And when you're having sex, the clitoris sometimes just doesn't get any kind of action. And so I'd like to stop now for a minute and just see if you have any questions.
I have one. You said there is 11 types of orgasms?
Right. You would like me to list all of them to you? So there is the different types of orgasms and I won't be able to list them all to you. Sometimes it's combination orgasm. So there's a clitoral orgasm, there is the vaginal orgasm, and there is a combination of two. And then you can have orgasms in the anus, and then the combinations of them as well. Then you can have full body orgasms as well. So what women have reported through this practice, when women have reported with this practice is that because often what happens out there that women are numb. They're just numb. They don't feel anything. And part of it could be psychological, part of it could be emotional blockage. There's a lot of emotional trauma that is stored in our, I would say, even if we haven't been raped or, I would say there isn't a woman out there who has not been touched in a way that she didn't like. And our bodies remember that. And so, and if it has been sort of more traumatic, then there is a numbness that develops. So through this practice, all of that will start to sort of get released. And the secret is really safety. Women need to feel safe in order to be able to allow themselves to go there. And so it's a combination of orgasms. And I have to say that, for when you become this heightened senses, when your senses become so heightened, you're able to have an orgasm just by hugging. And or even just me looking at you. And really that has been my experience. And there's a way to get there, and there's a way for everyone to get there, and that's really my mission, that we all feel that and connect to each other that way, and it's what we feel is really just the love for each other, and we get off on the love that we feel for each other, and our bodies have a high intelligence. Our body is way more intelligent than our brain is, and therefore it once it's allowed and all the blockages removed, then it will just connect to another human being. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a question around, will you be speaking to the relationship between the emotional intimacy and the physical? Because what I'm interested in, what comes first? Because I think a lot of women are seeking emotional intimacy first.
Yes.
And the safety.
Yes.
And then have them simultaneous. But will you be speaking to? I guess I have a question sometimes. Which comes first?
So we have been taught that you're not allowed to have sex until you're in love with a person, right? And women do want that kind of emotional safety. But what has been my experience, that if you allow yourself to be surrender your body to clearly you need to feel safe with that other person, and it can be pretty much anybody. It can be a woman, it can be a man, it can be a stranger, as long as you feel safe around it, then your body will just do the rest. And
the intimacy will be
and an intimacy is in the surrender.
Can I just comment on that?
Yes.
Part of what comes first, a lot of us think emotion comes first because it comes really fast, but very often it's actually your physiology will create your emotion. So when you can actually break through the emotional and the intellectual barriers and allow your body that energy to heal and have its modalities that can happen through orgasm, will create the breakthrough that will then affect your emotional level, if that makes sense. So sometimes you have to go mind over matter.
Yeah, I totally get that. But then what I find can happen is the partner will be in the physical versus, there'll be a clash with where the partner and the female are at in those levels.
It's a journey of growth.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it is a journey, and it is communication, and it is a lot of communication. And I think the beauty of this practice that this is not a sexual act. It involves a sex organ, but it is basically a practice of deconstructing our conditioning, and it's a focus cultivating practice. So in meditation, you're as Liam was doing, you're focusing on images, or you're focusing in your third eye, or you find a point of focus. In this practice, the man and the man is focusing on the clitoris, the 1 o'clock position on the left hand corner of the clitoris, where supposedly that's where the most nerve endings are. The nerves are kind of twisted, and through this practice, they kind of unwind, and then you start feeling more, and it expands. And as the clitoris gets engorged, the surface gets larger, and then your sensations will expand. And in a regular sex act, it's a trade-off. I do this, you do that. if you and the women are caretakers, so they want to make sure that the men get everything they want, and men are also really kind, and they also learn through their sexual life that it's also really great to give also women what they want, because then women become more sexual as well. But with this practice is more about focusing on the women, and the men are basically they are stroking with the left finger that one point, and they're just watching what unfolds. And through that, women are allowed to surrender and not worry about giving back. And this is the really big part of the exercise, is that it's not based on trade, and it is just about you. And once you keep practicing it, though, and always the perennial question, what's in it for the men? Well, men will understand women better. They will understand how emotionally complex women are, and women will become way more sexual. And so isn't that what we want in a relationship? A guy who is more emotional and understands your crazy up and down emotions all the time, and also do men want women who are more sexual and ask for sex and initiate sex, and they start loving the sex itself for the sake of connection. And reportedly that's what women are saying, that they just start wanting and loving and being in that intimate space with their men. You had a question?
I think you sort of answered it. I was just
Okay.
wondering whether that was more the aspect of the witnessing of the sexuality without having to give at the
Yes.
same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's more about witnessing. So it's not an actual sex act. It's a goalless practice. So when I talked about that manipulation of women, it's always because there is a destination to get to, and a goal that we want to get to. And we would like to, suggest that if you remove that goal and not just want to get off, but actually, connect to each other and create the space for women and allowing women to ask for what they want and how they would like to be touched, and it just expands. And ultimately, what I learned through this practice is that men are really beautiful human beings, and they just want to make us happy. They do, but they just don't know how, and we nag the shit out of them. That they give up. And that's really what ends up happening in relationships is that we don't know how to ask, we get frustrated, and the men just give up, and they'll go into their porn or affairs. There's 34 million people supposedly on these sites for married couples, and that's a staggering number of people who are married and they're seeking extramarital relationships. And usually it's sex, that's all they are seeking. So instead of going outside of the marriage or outside of relationships, once you found the person that you connect with and and you're living with, the idea would be to learn who that person is, and brick by brick, with the secrets that we keep from each other. That's how we are, creating isolation and separation from each other. And the idea here is to remove that and see each other for who we are, and to be able to connect to each other in this beautiful way. So that's the practice. And anyone else would like to add? There are some practitioners in this group, by the way. There's some wonderful men who are already practicing this. And would you like to add anything about how has this practice changed you and your experience?
Sure. I started practicing in 2012, so about 2.5 years ago. It's about, for men, like that question about what's in it for the guy, the thing that I find is contact with female sexual energy. You know, people keep saying, oh, I gotta go get laid. Well, really what you're after is you're after connection with female energy. Women have the ability to reproduce and have that energy, core energy, which guys don't have. So if you're away from it for a long period of time, you get kind of hollow and horny and hungry and creepy. And when you're in connection with it, you smooth out and get relaxed and comfortable and whole. And so the practice itself is about focusing on the point of contact, which is the point of the finger on the clit, and it's about feeling. And for a lot of guys, that takes a while because you have to get the practice, the actual ritual of the practice down before you can actually feel. But once you get into that, beyond that point, you can feel the energy in a woman. You can feel her rising up and down. You can feel her energy expanding and contracting. In some ways, I can feel reactions of a woman more through my finger than through sex or through oral sex or whatever. Actually, it is a way of really being in contact.
And it is a ritual, and the men take care of it. It's called the nest. You know, they create a warm, environment and a comfortable environment, because women are caretakers, and women usually like to take care of everything else, and it's really important for the woman to be able to relax. What we are trying to cultivate here is connecting to each other through our limbic system, and women, because they are built for survival, they're always looking out for danger, and so this practice is making sure that men are, who are also built for protection, and so it addresses the archetype of men and women in a very profound way, that men take care of the nest. They set up the nest. They'll make sure that everything is taken care of. They make sure the doors are locked, that the lights are okay, the kids are gone, and all of that stuff. So we don't have to worry about that, because women have to feel relaxed in order to be able to surrender in that state. And when I first started this practice, I just felt like this amazing gratitude. It's like, oh my God, you're doing all of this for me. Because we always thought that, oh, I have to do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. And that's kind of what women do. And then the reversal of the roles is really quite wonderful. And then it's just over time it changes the relationship. So for those of you who are in a couple situation, I would say it's like the best time to have this practice when you're fighting, or where you had an argument and it's like or he didn't take out the garbage or whatever. Usually we, us women, we just withhold sex, right? It's like he didn't take out the garbage. It's not. So fuck. And so then you turn, and then you turn your back in the bed, and you don't, and there's a disconnect, and he doesn't even know. He's like, I don't know what I did, so I know what happened. And so with this practice, it's like if you make it into a regular practice, especially through the hard times, it's really it keeps you connected, because you don't have to talk. You don't have to, do anything specific, and it's not a sex act, and nothing is required of you. It's just the will to keep connecting and be connected to each other. So, anything else? Anybody? Cecile, would you like to add anything? Yes, Andrew.
I guess for me, it's there is a goal in the regular sexual act. There is a goal of one or both having an orgasm, and there's an end goal. With this practice, the goal is growth and connection, and so there's no end. There's no end. Even though it's called orgasmic meditation, it's not about having an orgasm. It's about creating a state of that blissful state for both parties, and the fact that it's only 15 minutes, one cycle is 15 minutes, practically you can do it, on your lunch break. It's not.
At the office?
That's right. And that's right. I actually had done it at work. We covered the walls, and because it's like, got to do the practice. And so it is a practice, and you can do it, and it's and it becomes fun as well. And and they've done a lot of research how long this should take, because a lot of Tantra practitioners are here, and Tantra takes this to a whole other level. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. But a lot of people have not been able to engage in Tantra because it is such an intricate and practice, and it takes a long time, and sometimes 3-4 hours, and people are discouraged. They say, I'm never going to get my husband to do all that, for all that, and so people get discouraged. But we'd like to encourage you just to start here, and in 15 minutes anybody can do that, and the 15 minutes I would call it's almost like a defragment for your computer. It just sets everything kind of right. And and Margot is sort of the hormone specialist. There's a myriads of hormones that are involved in sexual activity and our connection. And so the big star is oxytocin, the bonding hormone. And in fact, they have proven that we have oxytocin receptors at our heart. So when we have that longer lingering hug, you start to feel that person really connecting with you. And there's a whole bunch of other hormones that are also involved. So women they get off antidepressants. They say that they don't experience menopause. Some women who have been infertile, they end up being able to have children. It's because, yes, they say we are depleted. The Western woman is overworked and underfucked. And that's really, and that's really our state. And I mean, I don't have to tell you, if you can always see when a couple is fucking or they're not fucking. It just shows, and you can feel it. And when they do, have that wonderful connection, and the hormones, by the way, it's the same for men. Through this practice, by the way, your hormones also get activated. So men are actually more vital as well and less depressed. And so that would be my little talk. I don't want to go on any longer. So for the second part, if you would like to remain, you're welcome to remain. I will do a demonstration of this practice, and you're welcome to watch. And those afterwards, it's only 15 minutes. I think, Dan, would you be okay to do the commentary through the practice? So Mark will be my partner in crime, and we'll demonstrate to you the practice, and then we'll explain what's happening as the practice is going on. And afterwards, if you would like, you're welcome to stay. We have some practitioners here, and you would like to try it out yourself, you're free to stay and try it. Or go home and try it. Okay, so this is this evening, unless anybody has any other questions.
Maybe you do have a website for people who want to try it at home and
Yes.
read a little bit.
Thank you. So I do have a handout, and so for those of you, thank you, Cecile. For those of you who are interested, I don't have many copies, but please leave your name and email, and I can send it to you and send more information. I do have a blog related to lots of these topics that are floating out there, and I'm just a guide. I'm not an expert. I'm just a guide, and I have. I am just very passionate to bring this out to as many people as possible because this is such an important part of our lives, and we don't talk about it enough.
Just want to say that as our population is aging and the baby boomers are moving on, I'm seeing this practice at some point sweeping the retirement homes.
So.
Because it's something that there's way more women than men in that generation. Many men are suffering erectile issues at that point in time, and this is a way for people to connect and get that energy connection or limbic connection.
And it certainly beats bingo night. Yeah, absolutely. And yes, and it, or collecting cats. That's for sure.
Get them to purr all at once.
Yes, and this brings up as we are going into that age, because this is one of the important part. Thank you for bringing it up. That it's a manual stimulation, because oftentimes what the biggest obstacle is in sex is, yes, erectile dysfunctions, or it's sexual incompatibility, or women actually not wanting to have sex, or they have vaginal dryness. There's all kinds of issues, menopause, or they're just simply not interested in it. While your hands are, and actually there's a lot more sensation in your hands, and they're a lot more tactile and and agile than a lot of our other organs. So there is hope for everyone. Okay, so yes.
I just in case if some people are not staying, would you be open to say the importance and what happens to both women and men when they continue practicing? And in U.S. research about both hormones and creativity and self-esteem, all those things that happened as a result of it.
So there's a whole book, Naomi Wolf's book on vagina, that's written about, and it's a 600-page book exploring what happens to women from a scientific point of view once their sexuality opens up. So and it's absolutely related to our creativity. Creating boundaries. Women become more open, more confident. Well, I'm the example of that. Never in a million years would I have thought that I will be talking about this to people, and and having really the courage to go and talk about this. And I hope I will become better over time at relaying this message, because what it's been, I've been involved for the last 3 years, and it's been rather frustrating how I haven't been able to sort of get more people into this. And so I'd like to find the reasons why people are so reluctant. And I know some of it is the partner. I don't have a partner. That's often, and I can't talk my husband into this, or, that's usually the issue. So with this practice, actually, we are creating a community in which you are, I know it's a gutsy thing to do, but, when there are practitioners, think of it as like a Reiki or a masseuse practitioner that, just knows the practice. So you can turn to people who could help you out and do the practice with you, because it is a practice. And I know that's very difficult for people to wrap their head around, because it's like, oh my God, it's like he just wants to get into my pants, or or I'm only gonna be doing this with somebody I'm really attracted to, and and that's of course initially is the case, but as it brings up all the host of issues of jealousy and everything else, it will all just burn away eventually, and at the end you will left with a more vibrant and creative life.
I just wanted to answer Andrew's question a little bit as well.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was at a group very similar to this one time, and there was a couple who was talking. They'd been married for I think 20 some odd years, and her story was how they weren't attracted to each other. They were still in love, but their relationship was like best friends. She was attracted to other men, but she wasn't attracted to her husband that way. She was introduced into this oming thing. She went to a meeting with her friend who introduced her. I asked her, says, well, did you practice with him, or what did you do? She left that meeting, talked to her husband, they came back, and her and her husband started practicing together. And what she said that it did for their relationship was profound, because it brought them together, they were happy, they were loving. It changed everything. From a point of just like we're friends and we're not, to it totally reestablished that connection. And for me, just as a single guy watching that, I was just like, wow. I was really amazed to see how they stuck through their difficulties. And with this one modality, they were lit up, they were on fire. And it was just
the
so nice
hormonal
to see.
component of it, right? It's a reawakening
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
the love that you originally had. And so you look at that, you know, that basically, you know, if you're lucky, the 2-year honeymoon phase where you can't get enough of one another. And so if you can have another practice that brings up that that drugged phase again where you can't get enough of one another.
Yes.
Then it sounds like that's
That's
what this does.
exactly, because there is a phenylethylamine you know, hormone actually that we only produce for 6 months after we meet somebody, and that's actually biologically it's put in place for us so that in that 6 months you're able to conceive a child. So it gives, you know, and it makes us hot for each other for 6 months at least. So we have a chance to have a child, and then it kind of just disappears. And then, you know, oxytocin takes place, which is the bonding hormone, and then you start, you know, creating the nest and all of that. But yes, the idea is to keep this heightened hormonal state in the body, which we call the turn-on state. So you don't necessarily have to, you know, climax, but you are in that orgasmic state, which means that your hormone levels are higher, so you feel more vibrant and excited about life. Walking on sunshine.
As well as your energy, because it is a meditative practice, not a
Yes.
sexual practice. So in that 15 minutes, you know, you're silent, you're not having a conversation, you're focused on one thing.
I'm not checking my Facebook.
No, that's correct. And you know, I must tell you, no, actually, to be honest with you, the first 5 minutes, I'm always like, you know, I'm problem solving, and it's like, you know, and it's hilarious because I find that I make the best decisions while I'm, you know, and I'm saying, what the hell are you doing? You know, it's like, you know, focus, and then when I focus, I drop into the body, and then the sensation expands. So the moment I'm able to focus back onto the sensation, on that point of focus, I just feel, again, the sensation expands. And I cannot explain to you, I've never, well, I cannot say I haven't, but you know, in a regular sexual act, there's so much more involved that we are not able to focus on the sensation of our own sensation as much, because there's so much else going on. And I cannot say that it will replace sex. It's just something different. But you become much more aware of what's possible. And what's possible, it's infinite, really. And that's kind of, it's never ending. So you will never have that, oh, you know, we lost it. You know, we lost it for each other, because you will feel that it will, you know, you will just want to connect with each other and discover more and more and more, because it will feel different every time.
And it will, because the focus is on the woman,
Yes.
I'm imagining this lovely expansion. And then, but for the man, there's a similar expansion, but it's just through his experience.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's a female-based practice. It's non-reciprocal. It's not like I stroke you, you stroke me. It's and so it's really focusing on a partnered meditation, the point of contact, and what you're feeling in your body. I mean, this is a demonstration, a discussion, but if you really want to get into the practice, you can take a day-long course on how to do it, and there's a whole bunch of steps. Like it's about a 12-step ritual, and we'll go through some of how that goes through. But those are important because it's consistent, and that way, particularly if you're practicing with multiple partners, and for women, they have that center vigilance. If something's weird, up it goes and they shut down. So you need to be able to get them. Women need to be able to relax. They need to be able to let that go. So it has to be the same steps all the time, and it has to be from partner to partner exactly the same thing, because that way they know what's coming, they know what the process is, and they can relax into that. And anytime anything is out of that ritual, it can shut them down so they become alert. Then they're out of their body and they're into their head. And so the whole idea of the practice is to get relaxed enough so that the woman can stop all the chatter in her head and all the things she's thinking about and just feel what she's feeling in her body. And so that's really important.
And and actually it appeals to men because they know what to do, and it's always because their linear mind is very structured, and if there's anything that is out of the ordinary, what's happening, we call it safe porting. So I will tell you that this is what's going to happen, so it's not going to surprise you. Whereas in a regular sex act, we just kind of randomly do whatever. And in this practice, it's pretty prescribed, and eventually it will translate into your sex life as well, because then you will feel like I find that I found my voice. I was always I had kids. I would have to be silent. One time my son walked in on me. That after that I had sex for 6 months in the car. So I have lots. So I have lots of So as women, we have lots of conditioning around how to have and then we are not allowed to make noises or sounds and etc. So through this practice, I found that I started to find my voice and able to express it more. And the more you, of course, express yourself, and then your partner can hear you and feel you and see you, and that's what we all
another
want.
part of the practice too, is that it encourages women to make requests. So if faster, slower, right, left, up, down, whatever, a woman is encouraged to make requests if there's something that you're so close, but just to the left, whatever, then do that. So it's up to the guys to, when a request is made, to follow through with that.
And so the idea is that we are doing this for 15 minutes just on the clitoris, and then when you think about it, it's slowing down. So it's slowing down in everything that we do, and that's really the motto of all of this, just to slow down. And even if you never take on this practice, that's the only thing that you take home with you tonight, is to slow down. And slower and lighter. Slower and lighter, not heavier and harder. Slower and lighter, because then we can experience the touch more. Okay, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. So for those of you who would like to stay, you're welcome to stay, and Mark will set up, 5 minutes, and go ahead and go to the washroom, take a break.
The washrooms are just down